To explore the digital innovations driving inclusive growth in Central Europe, please welcome Silvana Jirotková, Czech Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade, Zbigniew Wiśniewski, Vice President of the Management Board at Cashless Poland, and Robert Vass, Founder and President of GLOBSEC. Leading the conversation is Joana Sanchez Klosinka, Public Policy Director responsible for Central Eastern Europe at Mastercard.
So I must say I'm thrilled to be here because all the discussion has been evolving around Asia, Latin America, Africa, while we're talking about inclusive growth. But several Eastern European countries are silently making their mark in digital transformation. Actually, this region is home to some of the fastest growing economies in Europe, with record low unemployment rates ranging between 3 to 7%. Poland, for example, has had constant economic growth for the past 25 years. The only other country in the world with a similar characteristic is Australia. So due to political changes and economic developments, the manufacturing sector is noticing a slowdown. And this is the reason why the region has an urge in order to shift into a more innovation-based economy. And we're already seeing some signs. So according to the World Bank, 70 million of people in the region have a banking account. And that is a 16% increase since 2011. The first commercially viable flying car, has been engineered by 2 Slovaks. And 85% of people in Czech Republic are using contactless payments. So the rise of digital technologies and their convergence with the physical world is making rapid and deep changes in the way that innovation is being created and diffused. But we cannot leave anyone behind. It is essential that public and private sector work together to make this digital revolution inclusive and make sure that technology is distributed fairly. I have 3 distinguished guests with me today that they are proof that this digital revolution can include citizens, the society as a whole. They are also true believers of public-private partnerships, and I hope you're as eager as I am to hear their experiences. So let me start with you, Mrs. Jirotková. As Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade in Czech Republic, you have been deeply involved in drafting of the innovation strategy for Czech Republic, which sets the directions the country needs to take in order to be more modern, more competitive. And while drafting it, one of the challenges that we were facing was to make sure that all those measures also take citizens into account and the whole society. In a country where digital solutions and smart city solutions, such as contactless payments in public transportation, are a standard, how do you think that impacts local community?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for having me here today. It's a great event and inspiring debate we have heard today. Well, innovation strategy of the Czech Republic, which was approved in the beginning of this year, involves citizens, involves their opinions, involves their needs. That's what we were thinking about when we started to prepare the strategy, and that's what we also try to take into account while implementing the strategy. It means that we listen to people, we listen to not only at the national level, but we also try to very strongly cooperate with regions. The Czech Republic is not a huge country, of course, but we have 14 regions, and we try to cooperate very closely with the city mayors and with the regional governors, because they know more than we do in Prague, in the capital city, what is necessary for people in the regions and in the villages and cities which are, let's say, not included as much as needed in the process. That's why we are trying to set the measures in our innovation strategy and in the digitization process that these measures help to citizens, as also already the public transformation cashless payment system has been described.
Thank you. Mr. Wiśniewski, you preside over a truly fascinating project in Poland that is aiming at increasing electronic payments. This project is being discussed in the region, and many European countries, and especially in Central and Eastern Europe, are looking into replicating in some form, actually Czech Republic being one of them. What is so fascinating about this project, and how did you ensure that the modernization and the technology worked in order to develop micro and small merchants in Poland?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for this invitation and the possibility to listen about all those incredible initiatives, and I'm really impressed by the scale and by results. Poland, like 5 years ago, had the ratio of payment devices per capita one of the lowest in Europe. It was around 15, 16 payment terminals per 1,000 inhabitants. And surveys showed why micro and small merchants were not really interested by getting financial services, why they were excluded from this cashless payments. The first reason was lack of knowledge, and the second reason was the cost of the process. So stakeholders of the Polish payment market, including card schemes, and thank you very much for Mastercard for being involved and being the leader of the project. So card schemes, issuers, acquirers, but also public administration decided to create the fund to finance the market, to create the foundation, the Cashless Poland Foundation I'm representing, which was supposed to manage this fund and to manage the program Cashless Poland that was created. And two main areas in which program was supposed to be active. The first one was to answer to this lack of knowledge, the education. So we created the brand Cashless Poland that is quite well known right now in Poland, and used this brand to launch some educational campaign, publicity campaign, commercial in TV, traditional media, but also new media. And the second part was how to approach the merchants to finance devices that they are using. So merchants are supposed to get a cost-free device for 12 months and to have the cost of transactions covered also for 12 months. And during the first 20 months of the program, we noticed, first of all, the change of behavior of acquirers who are really close to merchants last night, mainly to those small and micro merchants. And we saw also more than 160,000 new companies that started to accept payments in Poland. Well, 160,000 is a lot, but if you look that it's 1/3 of all entrepreneurs in Poland right now accepting payments, it means that we are responsible for increasing the number of companies by 50% in 20 months. And those companies are using like more than 200,000 devices, are present on the market, active devices, which not only brought to merchants the possibility to accept payments, so be involved and included in payments, but also gave them the opportunity to see modern products and to use value additional products that could be offered on those terminals. What we saw also, based on the surveys that we did, we saw that more than 80% of those entrepreneurs really saw an increase in their business based on the implementation of payments. What I would like also to add is we are talking about micro and small merchants, but we saw also that this increase in number of devices was also very important for consumers. For instance, in Poland, we had old people who are getting pension from the government, so it is paid every month, mainly on bank account. And in small villages, in small towns, you could saw in the past very often no terminals, no ATMs. So those people having bank accounts, they were unable to use their own money. So we can see also that based on the program, we have also the inclusion of those people in the financial world.
Thank you. Pierre Teilhard, a French philosopher, said, "The most empowering relationships are those in which each partner lifts the other to a higher possession of their own being." And I think that this can be easily extrapolated to public-private partnerships, where everyone brings to the table what they do best. Mrs. Jirotkovå, again with you. Your government is really known for being a true believer of public-private partnerships. You've signed MOUs with Uber, with Google, most recently with us. So if you can elaborate a little bit on that experience and that you have with this type of relationships, and what impact do they have in fostering innovation and international competitiveness?
Okay. Well, I agree with what you have already said here. It is always about two partners, public and private sector. And I think we have a lot to learn from each other. It is not only about adding additional finance to what we need to finance innovation and our inclusive growth. It is about also learning what the private sector has to teach us. I mean, the private sector is motivated by efficiency, of course, more than probably public sector. And I have to say it works. We do a lot of projects together. It's not about infrastructural projects, it's more about soft projects like we do have with Mastercard, which is a great example. I have to say we learned a lot from our Polish colleagues in this, and it works. It's not only about having cashless payment system. It's about having included companies, small entrepreneurs, innovation, students who can be involved in projects like incubation centers for new technologies and innovations. So we would like to go, let's say, we would like to continue such projects, PPP style, because it helps us a lot to not only to finance, but to do more than we did before.
Thank you. Mr. Wiśniewski, you said before that cashless Poland would have not existed if all the actors from the sector wouldn't come together. We heard before Ajay talking about trust, Shamina then talking about trust and a common goal. From your perspective, what was the key to the success in bringing so many different parties in the cashless Poland?
Absolutely agree. Well, without the partnership of all those parties, without this private-public partnership, it wouldn't be possible. We have in our program, first of all, as you mentioned, public authorities. They are responsible for first of all, looking after regulations in Poland that should potentially help also the program, but also they are supporting us in installing terminals or offering terminals in public institutions, which it wasn't so obvious to have such a payment device over there. And we know that it is very important to give example also to entrepreneurs that if the public institutions are accepting, they should also accept. So first of all, the most important was the common goal. We know that this increase in number of devices, this approach to micro and small merchants to give them the opportunity to accept payments was a common goal for everybody. That's the first reason. But I think another reason for the success is that they are all still involved in the process. It wasn't just to create the program, it was also to have them involved in the program. They have different roles, but they are still involved. As I mentioned, public authorities are responsible for bringing terminals also to public institutions. Banks, issuers, they are much closer to the clients, offering also devices, taking part in the educational program. And acquirers, of course, they are responsible for selling terminals, but they change also the approach to merchants. As you know, for everybody, the business is the most important, but so in the past, acquirers were not very interested to offer terminals to small companies because of the level of activities, because of the level of sales. Right now, it's not anymore valid. They can sign a contract with anybody. So I think those two reasons are the most important. First of all, the common goal, and second thing, the involvement in the process for the time being of the program.
Yeah, I really like your point of finding the exact role of each of the actors within a project for it to be successful. I think it's also very important. Thank you. Mr. Vass, we've already heard two fantastic examples of how modernization is inclusive in Central Eastern Europe. You, as the founder of GLOBSEC, a known think tank in the sector, you have the opportunity to meet with a lot of government officials, talk about their priorities, about the future of this of the region. How do you see this digital evolution or revolution? Do you think that CE is heading in the right direction in order to make it inclusive and to work for all citizens?
Thank you very much for having me. And I have to say that I think we are going to the right direction. And not only that, I think that the Central Eastern Europe is better placed as a region than the rest of the Europe on facing the digital transformation and trying to grasp the opportunities, because we have more entrepreneurial mindset than rest of the Europe. We have more drive and we have more appetite for innovation. People like the free market economy, and 40 years of communism stole whole decades of development. So after 1989, we've been able to make a big leap, and we've been changing faster than rest of the Europe. So people are used to fast-changing environment. They are more adaptive, and that is a very good environment where you can actually innovate. So I think we are going the right direction. So I believe that the key to European digital transformation or competitiveness might lie outside of the traditional big powerhouses of European economy, but maybe they can be in a coalition of small but agile and innovative actors that you can find definitely in Central Eastern Europe. I believe, as the founder of GLOBSEC, that we live in a truly exciting times of digital transformation and technological revolution, where innovations can solve problems that we never imagined before. And AI, big data, these are really game changers for all of us. And it is exponential because we've been able to decentralize the innovation potential of the mankind with internet, which is accessible in general, and with the financing of innovation, which become cheaper. Back then, 50 years ago, it was the big state-driven programs who created innovations. Now, these are the private sector and private companies who innovate and who creating the biggest innovations in the world. So I think that there is a growing gap between how fast the private sector goes and how slow some governments are able to respond to the changing environment. And the gap sometimes is widening. And we need to close this gap. And that's why we need public-private cooperation. Actually, governments have three possibilities to react on the digital transformation or on the digital revolution. They can overregulate and they kill the innovation. They can ignore it and they create chaos. Or they can create the right schemes of public-private cooperation, and they can really grasp the opportunities. And that's what we are trying to do with GLOBSEC in Central Eastern Europe, and we are very glad that we are able to partner with Mastercard across the region to do this. So I think we have a real generational mission that we go through this disruption stronger and not weaker, and there will be more winners than losers. Just last week we hosted in High Tatras around 10 ministers of finance, deputy ministers across the region, President of European Council, Donald Tusk, Mastercard, Tim Murphy, and another 40 CEOs from the region. And that was really good because we are seeing more appetite for public-private cooperation than we've seen before. We launched the so-called Lighthouse platform project for cooperation across Central Europe on how to react and how to create more opportunities from this digital transformation. And also we published a paper on how to build capital markets in Central Europe because we desperately need it in Europe. And we think that Central Europe can become a blueprint then for the rest of the Europe to create these capital markets. You rightly said at the beginning that Central Europe is home to the fastest growing economy, some of the fastest growing, and some business indicators even show that some CE countries perform better than some emerging markets, and even better than some of the core EU countries. And you also said very correctly, and I completely agree, that the region has seen the emergence of so many unicorns on international scene. We have 2 of the top 10 antivirus companies coming from Czech Republic and Slovakia. So this is a really region with a lot of talents, but it's under the radar screen to many of the investors because there are a lot of small countries. So what we need is more regional cooperation. And I think if we adopt the right regional approach in Central Europe, we can be one of the most innovative places in Europe. Actually, by taking the advantage of the close vicinity of Vienna, Bratislava, Budapest, Prague, and the Danube River, we could create a region of innovators and a whole ecosystem, the so-called Danube River. So that's what we are trying to facilitate with our partners like IPM, who is here as well. So there are very nice stories coming from Central Europe, and I would even mention two more, which is Tachium and Innobat, which are really a true example of cooperation between the United States and Europe, how to tackle the most pressing issues in the international environment. So I'm hopeful, and I think we are going the right direction, but we need more public-private cooperation, and we need think tanks who are able to pull together all the actors around a neutral table to be part of the solution.
Thank you very much, Robert. I hope that we discovered some part of Central Eastern Europe that you were not aware of. We discussed inclusive growth as an inclusive with citizens, but also inclusive by bringing private and public sector together. And I think that the best proverb that could wrap up this panel is an African proverb saying, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Thank you very much for being here.